Addiction and fear, two words that go hand in hand. But how do we get to a place of freedom? Freedom from addiction, freedom from the chains that hold us down, freedom from all the problems that we face on a day-to-day basis, especially as it pertains to drinking alcohol. Hello, my name is Josh, living life alcohol free. Welcome to the channel. If you're returning, thank you so much for being here. I'm talking today about our fears, our anxieties, and all those negative things that go along with what it's like to be stuck in our addiction. If you drank like I did, I was a binge drinker. I drank for 27 years. I would drink until I was done drinking. I was never one or two and then be done. I was all in. I gave alcohol everything I had. And ultimately, all alcohol really ever did was take from me. It didn't really ever give me back anything other than kind of instant pleasure. Uh, the preoccupation of alcohol is something, the anticipation is something. I mean, it counts towards positives, I would guess, if you were putting up the positives and the negatives. Thinking about drinking, we all do it. I would say a majority of people, at least in our society, look towards their drinking session as something to look forward to. If we're at work, we're having a tough day, if we're struggling with coping with tough things that are happening in our lives, at home, at work, we lean on alcohol. How many of us say to ourselves during the day or text a friend and say, man, I need a drink? I used to joke about it, my wife and I, all the time. We'd be at work and we'd just text and say, is it beer 30 yet? Is it time for that wine? Is it time for that vodka or whatever it is that we're drinking that night? Man, can we just get this day over with? And then we look forward to that drinking session. Then we get to that session, we might be feeling good for a little while after one or two or even four or five, especially if we're with friends or we're doing something entertaining, watching a movie, or could be anything at a party. But, it's like we drink it, we enjoy it for a little bit of time, and then we end up dealing with the fallout from it. And not everyone deals with that. Some people, on the surface, it might look like they're drinking a lot, but they might just have a couple drinks while you're out, and then they go home and they get on with their life. Meanwhile, you're going home and you're drinking more. And that's how I would do it. I would drink one or two, maybe three at a place, go home, and that's really when my drinking would start, when I got home, because I didn't have to drive, I didn't have the responsibilities. I planned for it. That was my day, pretty much, day in and day out. But really, what I noticed after I quit drinking for a short period of time was that the drinking really led to a lot of my anxiety, a lot of my fear, a lot of my issues, and it became a problem. I heard Dennis Quaid recently say, and I made a little bit of a video about this, but drinking starts out as fun. But then when it becomes drinking and problems, and then it just becomes problems, that's really when we have to start to really kind of look within and question, is alcohol really serving us anymore? Is it helping? And the answer for me in 2020 was no. The alcohol is not helping anymore. It really took the pandemic for me to really open my eyes to how much I was drinking, how I was leaning on it to deal with life. And I had every day these battles, these internal battles, like what time can I start and actually function? What time of the day, do I need to get to bed so I can actually get up in the morning and function? How much can I have? All these things, and it all revolved around thinking about alcohol all day. And then I would get to that point where I got to that session, and it was being earlier and earlier in the day, if I'm honest. uh, During the pandemic, I wasn't working for a few months. I was off, and the first 6 weeks I just drank earlier and earlier in the day, more and more throughout the day. And then I was starting to incorporate other things like hard liquor. And that was really the topper, was the fact that I couldn't control that anymore. I wanted to control it. I got to a point where I was like, if I didn't introduce the hard liquor in my binge, I wouldn't be feeling as bad about my drinking as I do. But I would go 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row of just drinking beer pretty much all day from noon till midnight. And I'd start my day over again, and I'd feel, lethargic with a headache and nausea. And I would start my day over again. But in the back of my mind, I always had this fear and this anxiety that, what is life going to look like if I continue down this road? And having that in your subconscious, it eats away at you. It's debilitating, you know? I mean, if you're stuck in it, you understand what I'm saying. It's hard to function that way long term. It's not sustainable. And what I learned over the years, uh, being sober, growing in my faith, and leaning on my faith more, is that there's freedom and no fear. There's, like, if you want true freedom, it equals no fear, like I made on my thumbnail here. And it's like, that's really what freedom is to me, is that I don't wake up each day and have to ignore what I'm afraid of. It's debilitating. And you don't take risks. Um you're not able to do the things that you wish you could do. You have like an agenda. You think you want this and you think you want that, but those desires and those wants kind of take a back seat to the drinking. And before you know it, 5, 10 years have passed by, and you're nowhere near where you thought you'd be, because you pretty much gave alcohol everything. And that, being stuck in that, is not, it's just not a good way to live. And it took quitting alcohol for some time to recognize that. I couldn't see it while I was drinking. When we're stuck in addiction, it's hard to see what's going on really in our lives. And once I quit drinking and I started doing the work that I needed to do to fix the other things that were broken within me, that's when I really started to realize that fear dictated my life. Alcohol was the main culprit to that. Like I said in many of my videos before, quitting alcohol, it didn't solve all of my problems. What it did was give me the ability to just deal with what is going on right in front of me, not kick the can down the road, and then move on to the next thing. And then at the end of my day, once I've accomplished what I wanted to and needed to accomplish for the day, I get up in the morning and I'm fresh. I'm not hungover. And doing that day in and day out, it sets a precedence for us that we want to live this life. We don't want to go back to the way that it was before, because it's not, thinking about that and playing a drinking session forward. Each time you have an urge, you start to recognize that if you play it forward, 90% of the drinking ends poorly. It doesn't end in good things. It doesn't end in us feeling good. It doesn't end in us succeeding. It doesn't end in us having better dreams. It doesn't help us with any of those things. So once we're able to kind of get a little bit of time away from alcohol, and some of us have different levels of addiction. Some of us can quit and not have withdrawal symptoms. So it's more mental, but some of us have a physical need to drink, and we're physically dependent on alcohol. And if we don't get it, we get the shakes. We feel, sweaty and nauseous. I mean, hardcore. And if you're in that boat, I mean, I would suggest getting professional help. Certainly, having somebody near you that can help you with that and help you walk through that and not drink. But if it's a mental roadblock, sober groups help. Therapy helps. Just talking about it is helpful, especially when we have the urge to drink, and getting through that urge, because it doesn't last more than like a half an hour to an hour from my experience. But those were the toughest times, and I had to start to break it down and recognize, when do I get triggered? When is the trigger happening? For me, I mean, it started early in the day. I mean, if I wasn't drinking, like I said, I'm preoccupied with it. So my habit was to wake up in the morning and start thinking about what I was going to drink later in the day. What kind of beers, what kind of liquors, what kind of wines, whatever it was that I was in the mood for that day. Because let's face it, there's a lot of different variations of alcohol, lots of different flavors, lots of different tastes. Whatever your taste buds are, you're going to cling to those, and you're going to think about those and desire those. And it starts from there. And so if you can kind of shift your mindset and do other things besides think about that, like exercise, walking, helped me. Writing down what I'm grateful for, kind of writing down, journaling, getting on my sober group and posting every morning, and then reading those posts as they come in, or taking a break for an hour, coming back and reading through them, because there were a lot of posts. It was a very active group. It was called This Naked Mind, and it really helped me in that period of time. Then I would get to the later in the day when the witching hour would start, the true drinking would start, and I would replace that with other things. The community that I was on helped me tremendously, but talking to my wife also helped in those urgent moments when I really needed, and I really felt like I was dwelling and ruminating on guilty feelings. I was feeling ashamed, and that's really what was leading me to crave alcohol. So I was able to talk out those problems and break free from the chains that had bound me all my life. I didn't realize it, like I said, until I was a little bit into my alcohol free journey. I would say especially after 10 days, you get all the alcohol out of your system physically, but especially if you're in therapy, or you're going week to week, thinking about and getting to each milestone. After about 2 or 3 weeks, that's really when I started to notice that the alcohol was keeping me from the freedom, from the ability to have the daily life that I wanted to live. And I knew that I didn't want to go back to it anymore. So that was really the goal there. So if you're struggling in your addiction, if you're struggling with alcohol or drugs or whatever it is that is your vice, take solace in the fact that you're here. I've got a sober group called Sobriety in the Storm. It's a private group that you can share on this forum or on that forum. I'll put the link in the comments below for that group. I do live streams. I try to be on there a few days a week. I do videos Wednesdays and Sundays. I may up that here shortly. I maybe do 3 days a week for those. But those are the things that I do to fill my day. And like I said, once I was able to get over those urges, about 3 months into my being alcohol free was really when I had my last urge, strong urge to drink. And what a freeing feeling that was to get to that point where I didn't feel like I needed it anymore. It didn't mean I didn't crave it sometimes, and I certainly wasn't over my anxiety and my fears until about the 6 month mark. I would say that my anxiety got better. I'm not, I can't convince myself, I can't say that the fear was completely gone, but it wasn't dictating my life like it had been. And working on our subconscious mind is what this is all about, replacing what used to be our preoccupation with alcohol, our drinking of alcohol, our fallout from the alcohol, the hangover, replacing that subconscious with things that really actually bring us joy. That's really what this is all about. If we can get to a point where we can fill those in, fill in that subconscious mind with things that because our minds go on autopilot. I mean, our minds work like once we start doing something that we think works for us, we just continue that pattern. For me, that was drinking for 27 years. And how crazy is that? But I mean, I got used to it. And I think that's what it is like for a lot of us. We just get used to it. We think it's working for us. Uh, and we just continue on with that path. But when it gets to a point when it's just problems, that's when we need to start to really question our relationship with alcohol, put it into perspective, and start doing other things that really can be life sustaining, can give us the freedom that we want, can release us from that mental prison that we were in, that every day, that mental gymnastics that we were doing just to bend over backwards for alcohol, for a drinking session, and we can move on from that. And that's really why I started this channel. I started to grow in my faith in year two. Um, about year 2.5 is when I found a church and a pastor. And what Jesus did for me was fill in the gaps of all those things that were missing. I didn't feel like I had fulfillment yet, and really my faith was what filled all the rest of it in. That's what worked for me. Um, Whatever works for you, I say, this journey is not linear. It's jagged. It's up and down. It's all over the place. This alcohol-free journey, but that's what the beauty of it is. That's what the best part of it is that we can find ourselves again. We can look within. We can strive for the life that we want, that we desire, that we need, and it takes time to find that. But day to day, we start to find ourselves again and recognize that hey, we have needs and wants and desires and passions that we can follow, and we can do it our authentic selves without alcohol. And that's the beauty of it. So I'm glad that you're here. Please like and subscribe. Come along with me on this journey. Um, and like I said, I'll pin the link to my Facebook group and my playlist for my sobriety videos down below. So have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.